Journey to the Italian countryside of Tuscany and visit a romantic villa garden. Travel to the French Riviera city of Menton, famous for its sunny Mediterranean gardens. And revel in a blaze of color at one of the largest and most famous springtime gardens in Europe, the Netherlands' Keukenhof. Join us for a delightful world garden tour. Like many of its Tuscan neighbors, the 500-year-old Villa Gambaraia, located in the hills above the city of Florence, reflects a mix of Renaissance and Baroque styles. But the gardens surrounding this house offer an abundance of distinctive features that make the property particularly unique. Although originally constructed as a monastery, Gambaraia became a private villa in 1610. Today it is the home of the Zalum family.
This is the imagination of the creator, and my impression is that we had many creators adding one to the other.
The first unusual element visitors notice is this take on a traditional Italian garden, located beside the villa. Ordinarily, Italian gardens are centered around a fountain, with colorful beds and pathways, forming rigid geometric shapes around it. Here at the Villa Gambaraia, those beds have been transformed into pools, which are fringed with variegated flowers, clumps of oleander, clipped boxwoods, and cypress topiaries. Potted lemon trees and geraniums accent what has become, in effect, a water garden. A dramatic curving loggia of carefully shaped cypress trees encloses this garden and provides a scenic frame for the view of gently rolling hillsides surrounding the villa. Nearby, at the far end of the central bocce green, stands the Grotto of Neptune, the god of the sea. It's one of Gambaraia's most remarkable features. This arched fountain of textured stonework is inlaid with shells brought from the sea, and tall, slender cypress trees surround the grotto.
While there you have trees, the same cypress, characteristic of the cemeteries. That's why this land has a certain sadness, in contrast with the joy of the flowers. Those trees are more than 300 years old.
Many of the sculptures here are carved from the classic gray stone that is commonly used in Tuscany. Others are molded from terracotta and placed into alcoves inside the grotto. In the grotto's retaining wall, a small wrought iron gate with an intricate design of Florentine lilies opens onto a rocaille, a superb secret garden carved out of the hillside stone. The rounded rocaille is completely open at the top, allowing sunlight to illuminate potted geraniums and to sparkle off the shell-covered walls. Up the grotto's balustraded steps lies a citrus garden, or lemonaia. Here, citrus trees are planted in decorative pots, which weigh 1,600 to 2,000 pounds each. Some date back to the year 1750. The details in the terracotta demonstrate the aesthetic importance of the citrus plants.
They are ornamental plants, mostly. It gives a specific effect on the structure of the garden. It has been associated, always associated to the Tuscany garden.
The pots allow the plants to be moved into storage houses during the winter to shield them from colder weather. A soothing oak garden flanks the potted citrus groves. This area, called the Giardino Inglese, or English garden, is home to a 300-year-old grove of trees that grow in natural arrangements. Its effortless style reflects the popular Victorian English fashion of natural-looking woodlands, a far cry from the highly geometric forms of the traditional Italian garden. The oak garden leads back to the front terrace, which offers a breathtaking vantage point to pause and ponder the historic city of Florence.
We are very proud of this garden, of course. We understand that it is something magnificent. So the fact to have people being happy to have seen it and to remember it, because they come to remember it, they cannot forget it. This is enough for us.
Coming up on World Garden Tour, we'll find out how British travelers brought botanic bounty from around the world to the French Riviera city of Menton. And later traveled to what was once a royal medieval Dutch hunting ground that now boasts one of the world's most spectacular displays of rich springtime color. World Garden Tour now travels to the French Riviera, a coastline known for its stunning gardens. Because of the temperate Mediterranean climate, almost any kind of vegetation grows well here. Located 17 miles north of Nice, in the foothills of the Maritime Alps, the French city of Menton is considered one of the most beautiful cities on the Riviera. It's home to a number of magnificent gardens. In fact, the city's motto, Ma ville est un jardin, literally means, my city is a garden.
Les jardins sont importants dans une ville.
The gardens are important in Menton because they make the architecture more attractive and the life nicer. We have a lot of historical gardens and a lot of public gardens.
The gardens of the city were largely created by 18th century British expatriates who lived in Menton because of the ideal climate, gorgeous topography, and of course, the ability to grow dramatic gardens.
Les jardins ont été créés au début du siècle par
The
les
British
Anglais, essentiellement.
were collecting many times plants from other countries that they couldn't grow in England. That's why the British came to Menton and created gardens, so they could introduce plants found during the travels.
The Garden of La Serre de la Madone is the only French garden designed by Englishman Lawrence Johnston, who also created the Hidcote Manor Gardens in England. The central feature of this rich green garden is a quiet lily-covered pond with its graceful statue of a welcoming Madonna. The gardens are somewhat overgrown with exotic plants, like the Strelitzia reginea, known as the bird of paradise. It is actually a member of the ginger family. The bird of paradise is not frost-hardy, but can be cultivated as a greenhouse or a container plant in cooler zones. Although native to South Africa, this beautifully formed plant is now found throughout the world, and it brightens many of Menton's gardens. Another impressive Riviera garden is the Val Ramée. This property was originally a farm, which Lord Radcliffe, a former governor of Malta, bought in 1905. The garden he created to surround this Mediterranean-style villa is home to more than 700 different species of plants and trees. Radcliffe specialized in collecting Solanaceae. This vibrant shrub is commonly known as angel's trumpet. And like Datura, its deadly cousin is highly poisonous. Despite its toxicity, the angel's trumpet is quite beautiful. Large tubular flowers in shades that range from white to apricot hang like gently swaying bells from its branches. Val Ramée also has a wonderful collection of succulents, fruit trees, and tropical palms from around the world. Short and tall palms are carefully grouped, and their alternating colors of foliage lend dramatic shades of serene green and deep lustrous red to the entire garden. One of the reasons this lotus and other plants grow so well in Menton is the local microclimate.
Les palmiers
Palms don't do well in cold weather, and Menton is not a town that is warmer than others, but it's less cold in the winter. The town is protected by the mountains against the cold winds coming in from the north, and the sea tempers drops in temperature. For example, in winter, it's warmer in Menton than it is in Nice, so some palms grow in Menton, but in Nice they don't.
The special climate of Menton has provided centuries of wonderful gardens, and the colorful flowers, the various palms, and the flamboyant shrubs here in the Garden City are sure to attract visitors to the French Riviera for many years to come. Next on World Garden Tour, witness the first touch of spring color provided by more than 6 million bulbs at the Netherlands' Keukenhof Gardens. Welcome back to World Garden Tour. For a few short months in spring, what was once a royal medieval Dutch hunting ground is transformed into an earthbound rainbow of flowers, viewed by 1 million visitors each year. Located 40 miles southeast of Amsterdam, the grounds of Keukenhof Castle lie in the heart of the Netherlands' bulb cultivating fields. In 1949, the grounds were developed by a consortium of bulb growers as an exhibition garden to showcase the splendor and sheer variety of their blooms. It is certainly a breathtaking display. The exuberant and harmonious color created by more than 6 million bulbs stretch as far as the eye can see. The entrance to the 70-acre park is designed in a traditional English style.
The English landscape garden is special with the lake. It is always water. And you cannot see the beginning and not see the end. That is very important for the English style. Also the trees, and especially the old trees here. They are now about 160 years old. That is the style of the garden. The best area of Keukenhof Gardens, and that most people like that at most, I think that is the area around the lake. It's wonderful. It gives you a very warm and good feeling.
Past the lake, visitors enter into a more formal and symmetrical area of the garden. Here, the tulip displays are set off by muscari, and the walkways are bordered with clipped boxwood hedges and topiaries. This stylized bed features brilliantly colored tulips, red, yellow, and pink. A swath of bold blue muscari cuts through the bed in a lightning bolt pattern. The Keukenhof is more than just a scenic display. It's also a marketplace where bulbs are available for sale. One of the Keukenhof's primary goals is to inspire visitors with ideas that they can transplant into their own gardens. This series of smaller theme gardens is designed to do just that.
Theme gardens is just made only for the people then they see smaller garden, like at home. Therefore we have made here model gardens like a border garden, French garden, or a smells garden. Then most people don't know, but also the tulips, many varieties of tulips smells very well.
Nearby, the lovely sculpture garden features more tranquil colors.
When it is very busy here, that area is always very quiet. But it's typically a romantic garden.
The Keukenhof's woodland garden features a mix of bulbs and perennials that run wild, creating a natural equilibrium. They are planted along the banks of a cascading stream.
We have now showing people how to make in their own garden the combination of perennials and bulbs. Also with very important with conifers, with trees and so on. We have now 2 gardens of that, and I think that will be the future.
This area borders an orderly Japanese influence. Dutch traders first brought Japanese plants to the Netherlands in the 17th century. And this simple, elegant garden space showcases the fusion of the 2 cultures. Waterfalls and streams are important elements in these gardens. The Keukenhof, like much of the Netherlands, is intertwined with canals, and the soothing sound of running water is everywhere.
When the tulips the flowering time is over, it is finished and we will close in the end of May. We don't plant anything after the tulips time. And you cannot plant tulip on tulips on tulips on the same area. Therefore, we plant always new tulips and new daffodils and new hyacinth for that, but also changing the area with grass and so on. And you don't see here any illness in the garden.
Although brief, the wondrous variety and beauty of the Keukenhof is truly an inspiration. When World Garden Tour returns, the Keukenhof's head gardener will demonstrate how you can achieve results like these in your own garden.
This Saturday at Kmart, find the lowest prices of the season. Mission Viejo patio set just $499.99. Basic edition tees in all the spring colors just $489. And get a portable DVD player just $99.99. Stop by and save big this Saturday only at Kmart.
Hey, want to have some fun? Start them off with a relaxing hot shower. And then when they're all soapy and dripping with shampoo, bam! Cut to cold.
Uh-huh.
It was hilarious.
And to think they replaced you.
Crazy, ain't it?
Propane water heaters heat water nearly twice as fast as electricity.
I meant to do that.
And can cost a third less to operate.
The Netherlands' famous Keukenhof gardens are known for their color. Now World Garden Tour reveals a few of their secrets. In order to extend the life of the displays, Keukenhof gardeners use a special method of planting. Each one of the beds at the Keukenhof is planted with not one, but 3 layers of bulbs, as head gardener Theo van Keulen explains.
First of all, I will show you the perennialized planting. And here you see blooming the latest tulip, the tulipa and the crocus. When you plant in 3 levels, first of all you plant the 3rd level and the late tulip.
The 3rd or bottom level contains late tulip bulbs that should be planted nose up about 8 inches deep and covered with an inch of soil. In the same hole, the 2nd level is then planted with early flowering tulips. After covering each with an inch of soil, plant the top or 1st level with crocus bulbs. Remember to prepare the soil well by spading deeply and adding organic matter. Bulbs do best in well-drained soil, and bone meal is an excellent soil amendment for them. The bulbs will begin to bloom in succession from the top level down. When the first ones have finished flowering, remove the foliage and bulbs. The 2nd level of early tulips is next to flower and should also be removed once their blooms have faded. The late flowering tulips on the 3rd level should finish blooming in May and can be removed then. It's best to remove the bulbs and store them once they complete their full blooming cycle, because when left in the ground, they tend to lose strength and may not flower the next year. After all the tulips have been removed, you can replant the area with annuals. If you planted top-heavy bulbs like hyacinths, here's an easy way to keep them upright.
When the bulbs falling down, you can use this iron dryer and put them in the flower to the bulb so that he stay right.
Visitors come here from all over the world, and most come away with a lot of new ideas and inspiration.
We bought 100 tulip bulbs and planted them in our yard. Yes, it's just, you can hardly go away without thinking how gorgeous it is. I didn't know there were so many kinds of tulips. It's just so beautiful.
The Keukenhof's director and head designer also has some pointers for the home gardener.
Some bulbs, one color, red. Please plant 15 or 20 together. And plant yellow together. And plant them in one area. Don't do it this way, to plant one bulb over there, and one bulb over there, and one bulb over there, and so on and so on. That is, no. Put them all together, and you will have a wonderful spot in your own garden. I think that's the best way to plant.
It's also important to sketch your ideas to incorporate trees and other features of your garden. You won't believe how these sketches can literally come to life.
Of the other side is also very nice from this. And you see it here. We have make here flowers, flower arrangements here with double flowering tulips. The red one, and here in the middle, the yellow one. And also here blue lines with muscari. The blue lines is coming from here till here and through here. You can make them yellow, but when you will do it in your garden, put together orange with white and crepe hyacinths. You will have a wonderful combination. Also Electra violet with rosa, peace blossom and crepe hyacinths. Everything is possible and always it flowers together at the same time.
No matter how you plant them, tulips bring bounteous springtime beauty to any garden. From the vibrant colors of the Netherlands Keukenhof to lovely gardens of the French Riviera to the unique wonders of a secluded Italian villa garden. We thank you for traveling with us and hope you'll join us again next time for another World Garden Tour. Barcelona. Savor the spectacular views of two private rooftop gardens perched high above New York City. And marvel at the daring art and architecture of Sweden's famous Millesgården. Join us now for an inviting World Garden Tour. One of the most enchanting places in Barcelona, Spain, is the romantic garden of El Laberint d'Horta City Park. The park, named for its large topiary maze, was once a private garden on the estate of Anthony Duval and the Duval family. The romantic garden was added to the estate in 1853 and opened to the public with the rest of the park in 1971. It offers a lush contrast to the arid climate of Barcelona. Water is abundant and splashes over stone to create a cool, moist microclimate. Here, a bubbling spring cascades down the hillside into an ancient gully lined with cooling shade trees, collecting in a series of pools along the way. The refreshing atmosphere provides visitors an opportunity for relief and introspection and allows vegetation not normally found in the Mediterranean climate to flourish. Among these plants is the papyrus, which needs abundant water to spread its underwater root stems. The warm, shallow ponds of the romantic garden provide the perfect environment for the plant. Individual papyrus stalks can reach impressive heights of 10 to 13 feet and add a dashing touch to the garden. Along with the papyrus, water lilies also spread their roots and find a home in the pools of the romantic garden. A dry stone wall, a quiet dark pool, and bright green beds of lush ferns give the garden the romantic look of an overgrown ruin.
En cuanto a la vegetación, podríamos decir que no es un jardín.
There are not a lot of flowers in the park. Mediterranean gardens have a very special design to use many perennial plants and trees so they stay green all year long. There are many trees and the presence of flowers is very restricted.
It would hardly be a romantic garden without at least a few flowers, like these bear's breeches. However, by concentrating on large expanses of green space, the garden is able to retain its special character year-round, and with as little maintenance as possible. This design, which was new in the mid-1800s, became so popular it continues to be emulated today.
Paseándote por él, estás en distintas situaciones, en poco espacio de tiempo.
You have places where water, sunshine, and light mix together to create beautiful images. The different spaces were designed separately to give you the feeling that the gardens are much larger than they actually are in size.
El recorte perfecto.
Visitors move between these smaller spaces on rough-hewn stone pathways set amidst the Mediterranean landscape.
Para el aspecto de la vegetación se procuró mantener al máximo lo que era.
We tried to keep as many of the original plants and trees that had been part of the garden for over 200 years as possible. We put in a minimum of new species of plants because we wanted to retain the original historic flavor of the garden from when it was created in 1792.
Swans are kept in one of the ponds to add an air of grace and elegance, in keeping with the Duval's romantic vision of the garden.
The romantic garden was created by his family in 1853. The garden tells the story of man's struggle with life, that there is work and at the end there is always death awaiting him. There is a false cemetery to illustrate this point. So there is a message in this garden.
Near the end of the walk is a sunken corner where a false cemetery once offered visitors a reminder of how life is delicate. Ironically, the cemetery itself has vanished over time. The only thing that remains is the small hermit's hut, now thickly overgrown. The romantic garden of the Labyrinth Dorta pleases the senses and allows visitors a cool escape for a few moments. But it also presents each visitor the subtle reminder of its 19th century romantic worldview, which they can take with them when they leave.
What makes this garden important is transmitting the feeling of the neoclassical as well as the romantic way of looking at the world. I think visitors see this as very sensitive.
When World Garden Tour continues, we'll soar to stunning rooftop gardens in New York, and later visit a royal Swedish sculpture garden. Our World Garden Tour now hustles you off to Manhattan, a maze of steel and concrete that hardly seems like a suitable environment for a garden. However, New Yorkers plant in every space they can, including their high-rise rooftops and terraces. A delightful example of one of these rooftop gardens can be found 18 floors above Park Avenue in the 3-story penthouse of interior designer Frederic Biggs.
At the end of a busy day, coming up to any one of these terraces is just extra special. I feel very fortunate to have this. I can't imagine ever living without a terrace again. And the other night I was actually sitting at my desk working late till it was 9 o'clock, and I thought, I just cannot decorate for one more minute. And I got up and went out with my pruning shears and just deadheaded everything on the second floor terrace and felt great and went back to my desk 30 minutes later. You know, so it does that for your spirits.
The 9-terrace rooftop garden was created for Frederic by garden designer John Karloftis. He took special care to create a space that would match Frederic's moods and tastes.
When designing a garden, I try to work with my client's personality and really bring them into the garden and make it a part of their own, instead of designing the same garden over and over again that I would design for myself.
I think that this is one of my philosophies in decorating, in that I don't want every threshold of a house to be a new surprise. But I think a room should flow. I think a house should have a flow. And I think the same thing with going out into a garden. I don't want to come from a pink and green room to a purple and yellow garden.
John's exteriors are color coordinated with Frederic's interior designs. Blue furniture outside on the terrace leads from Frederic's blue-toned office. John continued the blue theme with lobelia, an annual that likes cool weather and are well situated for planting in small spaces. Outside Frederic's pink bedroom, John accented with pink flowers, including soft pink roses and hot pink loosestrife. This pink terrace, one of Frederic's largest, is where she does much of her entertaining. And because so many guests see this terrace, it was necessary to disguise some of the rooftop's less attractive features.
We have an elevator shaft here I've had to work with, and you're trying to cover up something, or like what we did here is work with it. by putting lattice on one side and growing vines up it.
A mural of pink roses conceals the metal door of the elevator shaft. But that's not the only thing hidden in this garden.
Well, the way this terrace also works, the big spot is right here, the big open space. It has great views. But then there's also little secret passages that go back into a kind of a secret garden over there. It's a shade garden.
Smaller private areas are tucked away throughout Frederique's rooftop garden, and each one is an intimate personal space, constantly changing.
Every day it's different. The sunset's different every day. But just to have something green to look out there, it makes me feel very much alive.
Our next rooftop garden hovers high above Manhattan's Fifth Avenue and stylishly balances big city life with nature.
The thing that attracted me to this apartment 22 years ago was that it was advertised as having more outdoor space than indoor space, and I said, yep, that's for me, because I live in my garden.
This 800 square foot, 20th floor rooftop gave author Abby Zabar plenty of room to create a garden that connects with its breathtaking view of Central Park.
I think I have, the best lawn in the whole world. Because the parapet wall is high, I've created an internal garden, and I've created like a little walled garden, and you actually don't see the view until you go over to the parapet wall.
European hornbeams help Abby shield herself from some of the city.
I got them because behind them is a view that I'm not happy with, and it's of some water towers, and I decided to grow these in a shield in a way so that they would block that out but be attractive.
Green is the predominant color in this garden. Hardy evergreens and shrubs, like these yews, provide Abby with year-round color and can weather harsh New York winters.
I also like evergreens because they give a structure to my garden. And I'm living in a structure city, and the city is composed of buildings that have great architecture to them. I always felt that there was a place for green architecture within a stone architectural city.
With her garden, Abby can pick and choose elements of the city she likes best, such as these salvaged architectural fragments. These cobblestones have been hollowed out as planters for her alpine collection, which includes saxifraga and hens and chicks. These plants can handle extreme conditions, such as the powerful winds that race unblocked through Central Park and slam into the west side of the garden.
I actually have to weight things down with stone, which is okay because I like the stone, but it was something that I came up with.
Despite the difficulties of rooftop gardening, more New Yorkers than ever are challenging and enhancing their urban environment. Abby herself has noticed an increase in the amount of rooftop green space she can see from her garden.
I think the view around me has become greener because although these terraces and balconies have always been here, I can see it before my eyes that people are using their terraces more. They're just, every year there's more greenery.
Abby has certainly contributed to the green skyline of New York with her hidden rooftop. She's enjoyed this private getaway for 2 decades and expects it to remain her garden sanctuary for many years to come. When we return, World Garden Tour visits an enchanting sculpture garden etched into a rugged Swedish hillside. World Garden Tour now travels to Millesgården, located on the island of Lidingö, roughly 15 minutes from the center of Stockholm, Sweden. Once a private family garden owned by the renowned Swedish sculptor Carl Milles, Millesgården has grown to become an exhibition center, a popular tourist attraction, and a source of pride for the Swedish people. Carl Milles, born June 23, 1875, was a self-taught sculptor who gained worldwide recognition for his whimsical and daring works, which often included figures from Greek mythology, as well as astrological and water themes. In 1908, Milles bought a rugged piece of land to create a studio.
Millis became acquainted with this piece of property by his founder, the man who casts his sculptures in bronze, who gave him a tip that there was a wonderful piece of property outside of the city of Stockholm, but not that far. It was a very difficult piece of topography because it was just a stone cliff going down into the harbor here. But Millis had this idea in the back of his mind that he was someday going to make a sculpture garden here on terraces. This piece of property, being the space of a cliff, really is, by its very nature, vertical. And in order to turn it into a garden, in order to make the stone face a green garden, he had to make half-circle form terraces, fill them with earth, and plant them with something. And what he wanted was to get the effect of the cypresses that grow throughout the Mediterranean, but they're not hardy in Sweden. So what he did is got the next best thing. These are all junipers, which grow wild in this area here, because he was very influenced by the impressions of the wonderful gardens that he saw growing in Italy. And that was his original inspiration, and in fact, that's what he ultimately did. He made a sort of Mediterranean garden in the north.
Sweden's cold climate severely limits the types of plants that can be incorporated into the garden. The emphasis is on hardy evergreens like juniper trees and shrubs like rhododendron, along with birch trees and boxwood. Other bedded and potted plants like Indian crest and water lilies, blooming alongside other flowers, add color in the brief summer. The terrace greenery provides a backdrop against which Millis' wonderful sculptures are displayed. The terraces themselves took 50 years to complete. This upper terrace was planted in 1909, a year after the main building was built. The middle terrace provides a commanding view of the lower terraces from its long granite colonnade. The Little Austria terrace was built in 1924 to emulate the Austrian home of Karl's wife, Olga. It has two chapels, the larger of which serves as Karl's and Olga's final resting place. Below Little Austria is Olga's terrace, which boasts a delightful fountain. 4 large staircases descend to the lower terrace, completed in the early 1950s, when Millis returned to Sweden at the age of 75. And thrusting skyward throughout the garden are massive stone columns, architectural remnants of places lost in time, such as the old Stockholm Opera House and the Hotel Rydberg. Millis' collection of sculpture is also here, valiantly challenging the sky.
Most of the sculptures on the tall columns here are facing upwards. And many of the columns are quite tall. They're between 6 and 10 meters tall. The reason being that this little island is just outside Stockholm. Originally, there was no bridge connecting us to, at the time that Millis was here, there was no bridge just nearby us here, and none of the construction in the background existed at all. There were none of the apartments. It was just a forest on the other side, so there was a natural panorama for his works. But when he returned in old age to Sweden, in the meantime, Stockholm had grown out, and there was a completely different panorama in the background, and to get a natural setting, he put them on very tall columns, which accents their innate verticality. You've probably noticed that most of these works on the tallest columns are really designed to be seen in silhouette. And as an additional character, they have the appearance of being on their way up to the heavens, away from their columns. They're just momentarily resting there.
Carl Millis' brother Everett, who designed the main house, was an architect, as were many of Carl's friends, including Frank Lloyd Wright.
Millis' works in the 50s are very influenced by Wright's cantilever principle. If you look at Millis' God's hand leaning out over its column, or Pegasus flying away, just supported, you know, on the wing, the tip of a wing, it's exactly the same architectural principle in sculpture.
When World Garden Tour returns, we'll share some simple ideas for adding neoclassical touches to your own garden, just like they've done here at Millis Gordon. Past glories come alive as our World Garden Tour returns to the famous Millis Gordon in Sweden.
A very important element in the garden is the use of architectural fragments, which gives it a particular character of verticality. He uses columns in a way that, in fact, that many engineers object to, because they're columns that are freestanding and not actually supporting anything. But it gives the garden a character of being a ruin, in other words, something left from an earlier time. And it's exactly that illusionistic element that he was seeking. We have visitors that find something here which they probably think is typically Swedish, but it isn't at all. It's a kind of fantasy combination of the North and the Mediterranean and our time and earlier times and antiquity and the Renaissance. And it's that sort of complementary interplay between different cultures and different times that really fills it full of fantasy and makes it such a very special experience to be here.
Neoclassical touches are found throughout the spectacular Millesgården, offering ideas for incorporating a glimpse of the past to your own garden. Capture a feeling of antiquity with carefully placed architectural fragments. These can be found at many garden and statuary stores and at architectural salvage yards. Statuary stores also often carry small statues, urns, and other classical pieces. Try incorporating these pieces into a fountain for a delightful mix of sight and sound. For a more ambitious garden, direct a visitor's attention skyward with stairways, or on a single-level garden, achieve the same rising effect with unsupported columns and vertically shaped trees. And be sure to select plants appropriate to your climate that will guide a visitor's eyes to points of interest that combine the ancient with the modern. From the soaring delights of Millesgården in Sweden to the dizzying heights of New York City's rooftop gardens to the intimate wonders of the romantic garden in Spain, we thank you for traveling with us, and we hope you'll join us again next time on World Garden Tour.